Um, what are some top observations or conclusions from the coaching team, or from coaching in general? I think it would be interesting to hear what some of the top learnings were for us, the coaching team, in working with various learners over the last few years. Maybe some surprises encountered or observations and conclusions that led to any changes in Refold thinking or philosophy.
Yeah, there were a ton. When we first started, I would say the first like 3 clients that we worked with, we had this idea of like, here's how we're going to structure their learning. And that immediately failed in the first month. So that was a fun learning experience, but we iterated quickly. And I originally had this idea of like, oh, we're going to help them craft their like personal library of content that they can go through and that they can repeat on. And we really had to take a step back and start explaining everything from square one, because what we found was that people had all sorts of different ideas of what the different recommendations were. And I'm not exactly sure why this happens. I'm not sure if it's because the guide is like a textbook and people just don't remember what's in it, or they don't read it thoroughly. But for whatever reason, people have very different understandings of the recommendations. And so we had to sort of like take a step back and figure out, okay, how do we explain this much more simply? And what we found is it's sort of like this Tetris puzzle, where you have to explain certain things, expose them to certain things. They can't understand certain things until they've done some of the immersion. And that's actually like the way our course is structured now. It's like we show them what to do, and then we tell them why they're doing it, because a lot of things are really hard to understand unless you've like gotten your hands dirty with it.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So definitely the structure of the information was significantly different. I would say what we ended up finding was that there's so many things to talk about in this one. It's hard to pick. What we found was that there's a pretty clean pattern that we've seen. About half of people fall into this pattern as far as motivation goes, where, you know, they start super energized and super gung-ho, and then around 2 weeks in, they drop off. And then we have to build them back up until around week 6, and then hold them steady for weeks 6 through 12 before things start to solidify. And we saw that repeatedly over and over again. And so now that's become sort of a core thing, where the majority of people that we talk to, we assume that that's, you know, what's going to happen with them. It's not always true. Sometimes people come in and they're like already really solid. Or sometimes they come in and it takes a lot longer than 6 weeks to get them solid, or sometimes they don't even get it by the end of 12 weeks, which is really unfortunate. But we do our best to fit them within that 12-week time frame. So there's definitely a motivational aspect that is important that isn't really addressed in the roadmap. So that added a lot of knowledge to our end. And then the one thing that really confused me was that we've had several clients, it's not a majority, but like definitely a subset of clients who don't really understand how to understand. So like we have this instruction with intensive immersion or intensive reading where it's like, hey, you know, sit down and try and understand the sentence, look things up, break it apart, understand the grammar, like think through it and give yourself time to think through it. And what we found is a lot of people, they would do that process as like a checklist, but wouldn't actually think through it. And wouldn't actually do like the self-introspection to think through it. And so what we found is we actually had to sit with them and watch them go through the intensive reading process and help correct the way they were thinking about things. And the way that one client described it was, it's like, he said that he felt like he had been doing reps at the gym wrong the whole time. And now he was doing the reps correctly. And we had another person who was like, had never experienced that brain melt feeling of like, oh, my brain is tired. And after just a few minutes of doing this new approach, he's like exhausted. And so that was something that I didn't expect to happen. I thought that we had explained that reasonably well in the guide. But when we actually sit down and watched people do it, the way they were going about the intensive reading was not actually driving the results. And we didn't figure that out until we actually sat down and watched them. So That was definitely an interesting takeaway where you can't really take for granted that people are going to understand something that seems relatively obvious to us. So the more exposure we have to what they're actually doing and like having them narrate their thought process as they go through it, it's really helpful for us to understand sort of what might be going wrong. Because in theory, when they say, oh, I'm doing, an hour of intensive reading a day, we're like, oh, you should be seeing like great results, but you're not. So getting in there and making sure that people are doing the reps correctly, I think is really important.
Yeah, something I've noticed that as well, but also in the aspect of like context, or when there's something that should be relatively easy to figure out because you're either seeing what's happening or it's kind of like the obvious thing to happen, people still will kind of feel like, oh, I can't understand this. I don't know what these words. But there's like, okay, but you do actually know some of them. And that one's actually pretty similar to the English word. And so you can actually kind of guess because you also know what the context is that this sentence appears in. And I think that's a foreign concept for a lot of people to do, since you never have to do it in your native language. And so it's definitely something that's I've been thinking about more, especially in trying to help people understand and remind them what's going on there. It's like, oh yeah, you can figure this out just based on the fact that you've been a human before and probably seen similar situations to this.
Yeah, and if you think about like Krashen's I+1 hypothesis, the whole premise was that with enough context, you could infer the meaning of unknown things. And what we found is that a lot of people just don't have that muscle built up to infer.
When we almost have more going on. It's like, okay, well, I can't infer. I don't know what to do. I guess I'll just give up.
Yeah, and so if the entire premise is based on inference and a certain subset of people don't have that muscle built up, you kind of have to train that before any of the language learning activities become useful to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Hey, as you know, there's a lot of language learning advice out there, which can make it kind of overwhelming and difficult to actually get going on your own learning. If you feel like you're struggling to figure out language learning, you're not alone. It's an extremely complicated process with tons of different steps. If you're looking for a step-by-step guide to create the perfect language learning routine for you, then you have to check out our new course. We spent thousands of hours designing a simple and straightforward process that you can use to create your own personalized language routine that actually works. We understand that every learner is different and that you have to roll with the punches and adapt. Every day for 30 days, I walk you through everything you need to know to build an effective learning routine, no matter your circumstances. We give you the advice and resources you need to ensure your success, so you don't have to waste time looking for stuff to do and can focus on learning. And if any questions do come up, don't worry. We are always there to answer any questions and clear up confusion. And it's all backed by our 90-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. If, for whatever reason, something's not quite working for you, we insist you get every penny back. It's time for you to stop wishing that you could learn a second language. It's time to become the master of your language learning journey. Check out the link below to get instant access and start your journey today.